started to misrepresent. And that has come to our attention. Some of these figures are acting solely based on political reasons. There are others who are deliberately targeting the Ministry of Information because they do believe that and we have stored the effort to disseminate disinformation, wrong information about the government to the public. There are others who are deliberately targeting us because they do believe that our being here is helping to consolidate the relationship between the government and the people. And so they have started to brand this ministry all sorts of names. Some I will not say here. What I can say is that we have a duty. And that duty requires us to manage and supervise government communication. Beyond that, the responsibility is imposed on us to repel negative propaganda against the government. The public is aware that some of these people who are trying baby, that the Ministry of Information is going after them and calling out names, the public is aware of what they have said. Some of them are fasting and praying for the government to fail, for the Liberian people to fail. So we just thought to make it known to people who follow the Ministry of Information. All of these from opposition figures should not be taken seriously. Of course, you may not necessarily agree with our choice of voice here. That's one thing to disagree with us. But it is another thing to say that the ministry is involved in the business of raining vulgarities, insult on people who disagree with the government. We have never done that. I just want to clear the air on that. There are some who believe, who have dedicated unto themselves the responsibility that everything that happened here for Liberia, they will take a bad path and blow it up. The negativity, like nothing is happening for Liberia. They are targeting us because, yeah, we are very proactive. So they believe that their own platform, the substance of their own platform is being diluted by the proactive nature of the Ministry of Information. So they will never go on their very platform without talking anything and don't mention the Ministry of Information. Of course, we are a public entity, but that attempt to give us that mischaracterization, to portray a distorted picture of a ministry that has elevated the standard of the national discourse is wrong. The public spirit is there. All we have done is to ensure that the national discourse is sanitized. When people get shot with political views, they want to express their view, that's fine. As a ministry, we have a duty. So you tell me, what is the Ministry of Information supposed to do to somebody who goes on international platform and saying he's doing everything he can for the government to fail? He's supposed to call me and lay red carpet for him. Because part of the problem that person has with the ministry is that the ministry issued a statement, and according to him, the statement has placed a dent on his reputation. And so they cry all over the place. I just thought to clarify that we are not here to target anybody. We are here to manage and supervise government communication. But don't forget that the law creating this ministry imposes upon us the duty to repel negative propaganda and people who don't see anything good. For example, just yesterday evening, the Ministry of Finance being responsible and accountable to the public, to civil servant, issue a statement and said we are transitioning from one system of payroll, one payroll system to another. As a result of this transition, there will be delay in the payment of salary for the month of October. Boom. It is blown out of context. It is a topical issue. Simply because you just want to focus on negativity. One negativity after the other. It's not helping the country. It's not helping the country. So good thing last night the Ministry of Finance issued a statement which I will talk about later. And that they are trying to roll out salary to over 31 entities of government. But those who are running with that negative news, what I want to tell you is that the Ministry of Finance said that our problem has been resolved and they are not paying people. So you see, there are people who are stuck in neutral. So that mischaracterization is misleading, and we will continue to do what we're supposed to do here as a spokes entity of the government of Liberia. The World Bank has approved 8.7 million an initiative aimed at enhancing foundational learning in Liberia's public school, marking a significant advancement in the country's education sector. This follows the signing of the project between the government of Liberia and the World Bank. I read that again. This follows the signing of the project between the government of Liberia and the World Bank in a tune of 88.7 million agreement aimed at transforming public primary education across the country through the Excellent Learning in Liberia (EXCEL) project. The EXCEL project will support the construction of over 100 primary schools and rehabilitation of classrooms across the country, train more than 6,500 teachers, and provide leadership development for over 4,500 schools administrators. In total, the project will reach 2,337 public primary schools and improve foundational literacy for over 350,000 primary students through enhanced instructional material and teaching methods. An estimated 12,000 teachers and school leaders will receive specialized training and to strengthen foundational learning outcomes and classroom effectiveness, among other outcomes. So this is the thing we're talking about. The Ministry of Finance and Development Planning informs civil servants and other workers of the government that significant progress has been made with the system upgrade at Weah Data Center to facilitate the start of disbursement of salary payments for employees for more than 31 government of Liberia ministries and institutions. Technical challenges with upgrades have occasioned the announcement issued by the MFDP on Friday, October 17, informing the public that the payment of salaries for workers for the month of October would experience a week delay. The MFDP is pleased to report that it has already disbursed to commercial banks salary payments for employees of more than 31 government ministries, agencies, and commissions, and the disbursement of salary payments for several other GOL entities is on the way. The government of Liberia remains committed to transparency and accountability in all financial matters. The ministry deeply values the contribution of civil servants to the country's development and assure them of their unwavering commitment to timely salary payment. So the same thing I was saying, the United States government published what is termed as the investment climate statement for Liberia. And why that report by itself shows some positive signs for the country. But as always, some of our friends will sweep the positive under the rug and highlight the negative. So for us as a ministry and as a government, we want to acknowledge the positive revelation in that report. So the report, among other things, the statement disclosed that in 2024, the Liberian economy grew by 5.1%. And this growth is mainly driven by expansion in mining, agriculture, fishery, and the service sectors. The growth was bolstered by strategic investment in infrastructure and energy development funded by various international partners, including the World Bank, USAID, IMF, the African Development Bank, and the European Union. The report says that by the time the research was conducted, inflation was at 7.7%. It's now down from 10% in 2023. The statement further said that the government is undertaking initiatives to improve infrastructure, reduce corruption. Thank God the LCC boss is here. Establish more predictable business policy and improve the investment climate. So, somebody who does not have access to the report, if you follow us, some outlets are reporting on social media in newspapers, we assume that the report is completely a bad news for the country. But here we are. Here we are. The report is saying that the government is undertaking initiatives to improve infrastructure, reduce corruption, establish more predictable business policy, and improve the investment climate. On the 2024 Transparency International Corruption Perception, the embassy notes that the index indicates that Liberia stepped up 7 places from 145 in 2023 to 135 out of 180 countries. So even on the corruption perception, Liberia made improvements. The report acknowledges the government of Liberia's efforts, including the establishment of the asset recovery and the appointment of officials to improve oversight functions across ministries, agencies, and commissions. Additionally, the report highlights that the President has implemented measures to address issues such as asset declaration and investigation into illegitimate contracts that are within awarding processes, promoting ongoing accountability. The Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission, LCC, is stepping up campaigns for the government to establish a specialized criminal court that will handle only corruption cases. This is very important. The other day, the LCC boss actually echoed this call. That when they finish doing all the investigation, they go to the court, they get indictment. Even to get indictment, the court don't get crowded. So they talk about the legislature moving to now establish a specialized court for corruption. Go to the court. There are people who are being indicted. And all they do is to dilly-dally the bad time, and our whole thing was speedy trial. It's not possible. So if we have a specialized court for corruption, today they coming to talk about reports, investigations they conducted. Those very investigations will now go to the court, whose dockets are already crowded. They will start waiting for indictment before they schedule the case and everything. It's time consuming. The report also highlighted that effort. So the investment statement also encouraged Americans, of course, that there are opportunities to invest in the following sectors in Liberia: agro-processing and food production, renewable energy, information and communication technology, ICT, financial services and financial technology, and manufacturing and waste management. So, this report encourages American investors that if you want to come to Liberia to invest, these are areas that are potentially available to you. So the report is good. The ministry would also like to draw public attention to a recent meeting between Foreign Minister Madam Sarah Besco and U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, which was held in Washington, D.C. last week. That meeting is a vote of confidence for investment opportunity in Liberia. The two officials met and discussed deepening U.S.-Liberia bilateral relations and expanding U.S. commercial engagement in Liberia. The meeting explored avenues for expanding U.S. participation in Liberia's critical mineral sector with the aim of creating jobs and economic growth in both the United States and Liberia. Secretary Marco Rubio praised the ongoing efforts of the Netherlands Challenge Corporation to develop U.S.-friendly infrastructure projects. The two also discussed the shared challenges of migration and migration poses, and how both countries can work closer together on the issues. The LCC boss is here, but the government of Liberia want to congratulate the executive chairperson of the LCC for onward election as vice president for the network of anti-corruption institutions in West Africa. Councillor Alexandra Zoe re-election came through a consensus renewal of mandate at the close of the NACI WA's 7th annual assembly held in Abuja, Nigeria on Wednesday, October 15, 2025. The decision reflects recognition of Councillor Zoe's outstanding leadership, integrity and commitment to strengthening anti-corruption efforts and promoting cross-border collaboration across West Africa. The assembly, which brought together heads of anti-corruption institutions from all ECOWAS member states, also rectified the ECOWAS guidelines on borderless investigation, asset tracing, recovery and management, calling on all member states to integrate these frameworks into national system for harmonized implementation. Lastly, before we invite the LCC boss to the podium, we have followed statements attributed to former President Weah, referring to members of the government as charlatans and motivants, while also accusing the administration of President Joseph Boakai of evil and constant disregard and abuse of the rule of law. as a ministry that speaks for the government of Liberia, we continue to insist on a vigorous policy-focused debate which must be conducted with honesty and sincerity. It is unfortunate that the former president, who mounted the podium at an event that was supposed to be a groundbreaking ceremony for their political party, to begin to revert to personal insult and name calling. But that's what on the breach. We reject the characterization from the former president, and for the sake of clarity, we'd like to look at the connotative and denotative meaning of what the former president said to correct his verbal blunders. A mountebank is a person who deceives others. A charlatan is a person who pretends to have knowledge or skill they do not possess. So from these definitions, it is clear who the charlatans and mountebanks are. We can now simply say that the government, which was headed by the charlatans and mountebanks, were voted out, were booted out, is doing everything to remake the country. Improvement in the judiciary, anti-corruption fights, efforts to improve the national electricity sector, efforts to improve civil service salary. So between this government and the government that was presided over here by the former president, who deceived who? Who deceived who? The CDC as a political party, founded on the masses mantra in 2005, rallied the youthful population, rallied the slum dwellers of our country. And by the help of the people, they ascended to power in 2018. What did they do? The very people who brought them to power, the very party that brought them to power, they deceived the party, they deceived the people. That is why the party was evicted. They were basically amassing wealth for themselves. The president himself presided over the mass looting of the country. You know what happened to 16 billion? You know what happened to the 46 condominiums on the highway? You know all the negative things that happened to the country. So he deceived the population. He deceived his people. And so, in an attempt to revive themselves, they finally got a plot of land, you go to break ground, just focus on what you are there for. And try to choose subtle jobs at a government that is doing everything to repair and clean the mess that you created. It is wrong. We wish to remind the former president that his blemishes of his ill-fated leadership are still fresh on the minds of the people. The nation has not forgotten how the former president presided over the mass looting of state resources. We have not forgotten the domestic debt scandal he created. The GAC just concluded an audit, saving this struggling republic over 700 million, almost a third of the budget. Senator Dillon, as an outspoken member of the legislature, pleaded president's economic management team during the era of President Weah. Please release the list of domestic debts that you're paying. He held it like a Pandora box. He could never release it. Today, the GSE have gone into that place. They saved the country over 700 million. We have not forgotten. Today, our foreign minister is having a meeting with the Secretary of State and acting advisor on national security to President Donald Trump. Not in Europe, but in the White House. We have not forgotten that under the leadership of one President Weah, our foreign minister was visibly clearing the name on sexual-related offenses in America. You know that. So who deceive who? Who are the real multi-banks? Who are the charlatans? Where are we? Have we forgotten? This nation was being isolated under the leadership because nobody found confidence in this country. They were imposing sanctions on his chief of staff, on ministers. And today, we have elevated the standing of this country from isolation to being a member elected to the UN Security Council. Let us not play politics with everything. As a former president, we expect him to be above the fray. I want to start with